I asked everybody to dive into the book of Daniel. And I'll say it again, is that one thing that makes the Edge unique is that this is not we come together to share on Saturday. You know what I mean? We come together to share on Saturday. It would be sweet if everybody ate before they came. What I'm saying, it would be sweet if everybody was digging into their word before they came to church. And we all reading on the same thing, so then when we get here, all we're doing is we're just having a big old potluck. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, or I can get a little nasty, we just puking up on each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and then everybody's just sharing, and what it is, it's not something like, oh, I never read that before. It's more like, man, I read that, and man, we're building together. So today we're going to go through the book of Daniel, chapter 1. Next week I'm going to ask you to read chapter 2. All right? I'm going to give you just a little bit of background about Daniel. This is about 600 years before Jesus Christ. The people there, where they were in exile, they were taken captive into Babylon. They were taken to this place, and I'll get into a little bit more of the characteristics of the location, which is very critical for this. But there's a few main characters. There's Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and then there's Nebuchadnezzar, and then there's Darius. These are the main characters in this story. You may know the other ones, and I'm hesitant to even use these names, and you'll understand that in a few seconds. But Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Everybody know those names. The first names we probably don't know, and there's a reason for that. These men were taken captive, and this is the part where we got to just grab a hold of this one. They were taken captive, and they were moved strategically from their place where they were worshiping God, where they had a relationship with God, and they were moved into a place where there was nobody. The culture, the whole Babylon, it all represents a subculture or a culture that's counter God. That's anti-God. That's anti the God of Israel, the God that we know of, the God that we worship. It's anti. The whole environment was all built on idol worshiping things, worshiping stuff, worshiping people, making everybody to bow to. The whole culture was twisted. So when we say the word Babylon, I want you to get in your mind that it is a culture that's about self-glory, about blowing up, about being that guy. Does that culture sound familiar? You know, it will become a day that people will be lovers of themselves, you know? And I think that day is now. And that was then. This is what they're looking at. I want to go to verse 6 in the chapter 1 of the book of Daniel. Basically, they were taken up, and they were brought into a place, and they were sent here to be trained so that they could work in the king's, work with the king and be assistants for the king at bare minimum, and at best to be administrators or work in the local government. They were there to be trained and to be developed so that they can work in the government. Now remember, these are people that were committed followers of God. These were radical dudes. These cats were for real. These were the diehards. These were the cats that before they got to Babylon, they had established themselves. They established a relationship with the true and living God. It wasn't when they got to Babylon where everything starts going crazy and then they try to get it together. They already had it together. They already had a relationship, a committed relationship with God. Let's read this story. It's pretty interesting. Among these, from Judah, were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. You might want to underline that. To Daniel, the name of Belshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, there was Meshach. And to Azariah, there was Abednego. I think we have the tendency in this story to overlook that part. And I got to tell you, am I digging? This is the emotional part for me. Am I digging? I cannot overlook this piece. This right here is critical to radical living. See, I started researching. Those of you that know me, I've studied Black history, Pan-Africanism, Afrocentric isms, and all this stuff for years, right? And even in doing that, as a kid, I remember a joke. As a kid, I remember a joke that it used to be like, "What's your name?" Kunta. Right? With hee ha ha. What's your name? Kunta. You know? What's your name? Toby. That was extremely funny back then. It's not so funny today. You see, this comes from this movie called Roots. And I spent the last probably 2 hours, the last couple of days, just re-looking at this movie. Every black child in America that's between the ages of 30 and over, or 25 and over, probably watched this movie. They sat and watched it because it goes on for like 3 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, hour here, and just continue to watch this movie. And it was a movie that depicted the slave trade and all this kind of stuff, right? And I started digging into it. And I remember this. I searched on YouTube and said, "What's your name?" Kunta. That's what I researched, and I put that in there. But it goes right to the scene. And let me set the scene for you. What happens is that there's this one slave who was in the house, and then there was the master here, and then the slave tied up, right? And then the master was yelling at this slave and saying, "Hit him!" You know what I'm saying? He hit him and said, "What's your name?" And whack out! He'll hit him. He hit him, and he was trying to break the slave. He was trying to bring him under subjection. He was trying to strip him. He was trying to break him down. See, what happened prior to that is that Kunta came over. See, Kunta was a warrior, a Mandingo warrior. He was somebody. He was a king, but they seen him as a savage beast and tried to tame him, tried to get him to do what they wanted to do. And he was just like, "No, I'm Mandingo. I am Kunta Kinte. I'm not Toby. I'm not the name that you want me to be. I am who I am." And then what they were trying to do, they had him tied up and had Kunta tied it, and they were hitting him and said, "What's your name?" He said Kunta. And they hit him again, "What's your name?" And said Kunta. And then they hit him to the point where he was leaning to the side, and they hit him again, and he took a deep breath, and he said, "My name is Toby." That was probably one of the most devastating sentences I've heard in a long time. One of the most devastating statements. You see, what happened is that he had been beat down so bad. He had been beat so bad and broken to a place to where he lost his identity. He immediately gave up his name and said, "I am no longer Kunta Kinte. I'm now accepting what the culture says I am." You see, many of us, we're sitting here, see, in the beginning, God, he established you, he created you in the beginning in his likeness and in his image. He breathed his breath inside of you, and God doesn't make any garbage. See, you have a name, you are somebody, but this community, this environment, the media, everything is trying to break you and saying, "What's your name?" What's your name? And trying to break. They want to call you a slut. They want to call you a whore. They want to call you a dope dealer. They want you to become that. They want you to be a homewrecker. What's your name? And it won't stop until it breaks you down. And I'll never forget, Mr. Filler came over, and he picked up, he grabbed him, and he said, Mr. Filler was the guy that raised him. He was the older slave, and he took him, he said, and he was crying with tears in the face. See, Mr. Filler didn't show much emotion. Mr. Filler was like, "Don't you ever let them tell you that your name is Kunta." See, before this, he was telling them, he was trying to break him too, because he was trying to be a good slave. He was trying to tell him, like, "Man, just say your name Toby, dude. Just say your name Toby. Just get, them cats that be whispering in your ear. Y'all, dude, come on, man. Just drink a little bit. Just smoke a little bit. Just do a little bit. It ain't gonna hurt nobody. Just break. Just a little bit. Ain't never hurt nobody." Mr. Fiddler puts Kunta's head on his lap. He starts to whisper in Kunta's ear, "So don't you ever." He said, "Yeah, they may call you Toby. They may call you what they want to. but you will always be Kunta Kinte. You see, people will always put labels on you. This culture will always put cultures on you, put labels on you, put titles on you. But don't you let them strip you of who you are. Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys are now in a place where they're taken into captive. And when they're taken into captive, there's certain things that they want to start doing to continue the process of stripping them down and getting them to acclimate it to the culture. Or moving them to get them to be more like what the culture is. You know, act like us, talk like us, eat what we eat, dance like we dance, do all those things so that you can be intertwined with the culture as much as you can. I want you to learn the language. I want you to understand the magic. They talked about magic stuff. They taught them some things about magic. They taught them all kinds of things about astrology. They taught them all these things. That I want to take you. I want to implant you and make you into who I want you to be. Being conformed, right? Being conformed to the pattern of Babylon. I want to read here. I want to go one verse at a time because this stuff is like explosive and it like. Send me back receding. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's ridiculous. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. It says, but Daniel, when they came to offer some food to him. And it says, but Daniel resolved, he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself. This word, resolve, means devoted to a principle. Devoted to a principle. Fully committed to a course of action. Fully committed to a course of action. What you think about this? He set in his mind, he was fully committed that I am not going to bend. I am not going to fold. I'm not going to let society cause me to fold in. He said it here. He said it in his mind and said, wait a minute, let me set it here and let me put it inside of me that there's nothing, you can't break me. That I'm not going to let these things around me break me down. I don't care how normal it seems. See, radical is not about living normal. Radical is about moving beyond being normal. Radical is on that next level. Radical is saying, I'm going to devote myself to a principle. I'm going to sit here, and I know this is making most of us cringe. We're talking about, is this works? I'll get to that in 2 seconds, because this is not works. This is just being who you are. I'm saying I'm devoting myself to a principle. I am fully committed to a course of action. I'm not going to yield. I'm not going to bend. I'm not going to defile myself just so I can fit in, just so that everything else, everything can go smooth. Daniel resolved not to defile himself with royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. This defile is another strong word. It's like, it means to pollute, to desecrate, to stain. To pollute, to desecrate, or to stain. To make a conscious decision not to pollute or desolate yourself or put yourself in a place that is not about trying to make yourself righteous. You're saying that, man, I made a decision because I know whose I am, and I know that because of who I am, I know that I'm sanctified. I know this. I know that I'm special. I know that there's something about me. There's certain things that I just can't do because it's anti-me. You feel what I'm saying? There's certain things that I could do, I can choose to do, but I don't see these things being profitable. I don't see these things moving the ball down the court. In fact, I see them making me take steps backwards because I seem like I'm looking like everybody else. It seems like I just blend in. I'm just part of this big old tapestry, and I'm just another piece in the puzzle. And I believe God made each and every individual to be in 3D. You feel me?